coming. And по просьбе наших спикеров, поскольку мы говорим про технологии, то мы будем вести эту панель на английском языке. So thank you for coming, and we're going to have this panel in English because it's much easier to discuss technologies in English for our speakers. And it's a great pleasure for me to present an amazing panel of really great innovators who are going to speak about their startups. So we have here Art Stavenka from Kino-mo, right? And we have Stan Karpenko from Give Vision, and Serge Didenko from blog Smartwatch. So first, every participant in our panel is going to give a brief presentation of the meaning and the major purpose of his startup, and then we will have an opportunity to ask some important questions about these startups. And just last thing that I forgot to present myself. My name is Gregory Asmolov. I'm a PhD student here at the program for social media and innovation, and that's why I was invited to moderate this panel. So let's start. The first is going to be... Yep.
Sure. We got a little video to explain what it does. So I think I'll talk it through while you see what it does. It'll be easier than the other one. Yeah. If you switch on thing, yeah, much easier. Can you see? Blah blah blah. That's me. So what we've done, we've used smart glasses such as Google Glass to help partially sighted and blind people see. So when we started in 2014, we developed a prototype that would recognize people's faces. You can add people to your library. You can recognize it later, and also a few other things, such as reading text or identifying objects or places. For example, in this example, a blind person can be walking down the road and will ask where's the nearest bus stop. It'll tell them it's, let's say, 40 feet ahead, like in this example. And standing at the bus stop, identifying the bus number. Simple things that would help blind people to get around. And you just make their life easier. We then progressed after that to use different glasses as well, because it's not just Google glasses, different smart glasses. We've been lucky to be part of a wired telephonic accelerator. We've got a lot of great exposure raised around, and now we have a much more advanced prototype. We're not only helping blind people to identify what it is, but also we developed a sight augmentation device based on the VR set that helps partially sighted people to partially sighted people to use the remainder of their sight. So literally giving sight to people that have very limited vision. Yeah, I think that's pretty much an introduction to what we do. I'll be happy to answer questions. You know, these guys will be able to... I haven't brought any demos today, but if you go to givevision.net or you Google us at givevision at Google, there's plenty of videos. We've been on Sky News, many places you can see how it works. So here we go. That's us.
My name is Serge. I'm going to talk to you about my startup. So I'm a PhD student, graduated from Imperial College, and I'm part of a team which is developing the world's first modular smartwatch. So it's called Blocks. The idea of the smartwatch and how it differs to others is that it is very personal to your hobbies and to your lifestyle. So when we started this business 2 years ago, we had this idea that you could take a link of your watch, so not the watch itself, but the link, and you can embed any kinds of sensors that wearables can present in it. It all started from a debate with my co-founder. We basically were interested in slightly different things that we wanted to have in a smartwatch. But then at the end of the debate, we decided to make it modular, so that each module can have a variety of different functions that you use for your own needs, for your own lifestyle. For example, if you're a runner, you can get a heart rate monitor and a GPS sensor. If you're a business user for smartwatches, you can get a contactless payment card. Or maybe you want to kind of make it completely standalone and set a SIM card module and connect it to your watch. So really the idea here, sorry, the fonts have changed here, but the idea here is the last smartwatch you'll ever need. Why? We are now living in the age where we are forced to change our devices every year. We're buying a new smartphone every year. And when we thought about it, if we make our device modular, you'll be able to replace technology as it evolves on your watch bit by bit. And in that way, your watch will live on with you as you develop or as technology changes. So we ran a Kickstarter campaign in November last year. We raised $1.6 million from there. We have about 150,000 people, unique subscribers, with whom we interact every day. We've pitched at many different events. I think one of the more exciting ones was pitching to CEO of Intel, Best Buy, and Louis Vuitton in North America in San Francisco last year. We've been to a bunch of all kinds of different press. Where we really see the opportunity for our business is being able to build an ecosystem of sensors, or modules as we call them, where anyone would be able to snap on something that's relevant to their lifestyle, something they're interested in, onto their wrist. So it's pretty much just like App Store, but for sensors, but for hardware. And the idea is that you will be able to target all different kinds of markets where other smartwatches like Samsung, Apple, and so on simply won't be able to go into. I'll just quickly skim through this, just a presentation setting. We're working with a lot of big companies like Qualcomm, AT&T, and EE. Here's my co-founder and a long-time friend, Ali. He's a bioengineer. We have a team of very varied professionals from all kinds of disciplines, from IBM to NASA and Google and so on. We have great advisors based in Taiwan, Silicon Valley, here in London. This guy basically built the entire smartwatch industry back in the day when all the big people started coming into it, like Samsung and so on. And we are on our way to deliver our smartwatch in September this year. So, thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Martin from Kino-mo. So we all remember holograms from Star Wars and Iron Man. We've all seen amazing holographic shows of Michael Jackson to Tupac Shakur. But we don't see holograms around a lot, do we? So we're Kino-mo and we've developed the new holograms for mass market, and I'm going to do a quick demo for now. So basically you can put any images, videos in holographic style. You can see through the screen and you can see the depth. And that's why it creates the 3D effect. So technically, it's not a hologram of course, but according to the research, it's over 90% of people perceive this as a hologram, and we really don't object. If they want to call them a hologram, we do as well. So I'm going to switch it off now. So basically we are providing a network solution for brands willing to set up a network of holographic displays within their stores. You can attach the device to almost any surface. You can create content extremely simple. And that's why, because it makes it a scalable technology. You can envision it in bars, nightclubs, shopping malls, airports, stations. We're also developing a new feature, so you'll be able to manage a hologram with your gestures. Also, in the vicinity of the device, it will be able to extract your face and put it in real time live. Yeah, it's an exciting time. We've signed a contract for a few thousand British bars and nightclubs, Mexican chain of shopping malls. We've got a fantastic journey. We've been at UK Dragon's Den and received investment there, which we declined afterwards. We've been awarded top 3 British inventions of 2015 tech startup of the year by Richard Branson. It's really good. And also, we are hiring now, so if anybody wants to talk about it, get back to me after the presentation. I'd be happy to chat it over. Thanks very much, guys.
So thank you very much for really great presentations, and really you can see that every case is really very exciting and fascinating case of a startup. But first of all, I would like to ask you a common question. And as we know, there are like 100,000 of different types of startups, and most of them die very fast or not really successful. So in your particular cases, in your opinion, what really made your startup successful? What created this momentum that allowed you to gain attention and to make it a real project from the idea?
For me, it was the team. What we're doing is extremely complicated. We're basically having to build the whole device ourselves. Operating system, applications, apps, we have to build design. So really the team is what made us really successful. That's really the only factor for us. We have about 15 full-time employees working for us. We have offices in Taipei and Silicon Valley. And really being able to trust the team to do the work for you, without you being there and take all those critical moments, it really makes it great.
But do you remember the specific moment when you had the first time that you had the idea for your project? Like, was it like you were drinking a coffee, or how actually it works from the moment of the idea?
Yeah, I don't think this this notion of how startups begin, it probably doesn't work in most cases. For me, it was I've worked on a number of different projects, all of which died actually at some point in its life because of the team. Obviously, most other bigger startups, usually the reason is money, and you always have to make sure that you have enough finances. But when we started, the idea was, I met a really brilliant guy who was 19 at the time, and he was doing research and writing papers for conferences, which PhD students do, and having patents and so on. So we had a couple of coffees, and we started talking about technology for months and months and months, until after a while we decided to do a business. Then we brainstormed about wearable technology, and after many months after this, somehow blocks appeared as an idea.
In your case?
Totally agree with yeah, actually I do. The team is the most important thing, 100%. And this is why when you have some misfortunes, this is why you get up in the morning, you think about giving up, but you keep going. And well, there's no success, I'd say, because at the startup stage, no startup is successful as such, but there's a long way in front of us, so, yeah.
I would second Serge, your comments here, Artem's comments regarding success. I would probably disagree with the statement, because the purpose is not to build a successful startup, the purpose is to build a business, and startup is not quite a business yet. So I think we're a long way from hundreds of thousands of blind people walking with their glasses on the streets. That's when we call it successful.
And knowing this guy, I think persistence is another thing. He works like crazy.
Well, I just love it. I think also to say, I really agree with you guys in terms of the team, and this is why throughout the whole company life, we're always recruiting, and this is the most important thing all of our team can do at any point in time, is to find people who are really bright and smart. And I forgot to mention that, thank you our team for doing this. We're also hiring, so if you're in the field of computer vision, in augmented reality or virtual reality, we would like to hear from you. You can reach it over givevision.net and get in touch. We always look for bright people. And also, yeah, I would also agree with Serge about this notion that, oh, I have this brilliant idea and run with it, because ideas pretty much are worthless, and execution we think is much more important. And also, ideas change over time because you iterate in your idea all the time, get feedback from users and your ideas. Even if it doesn't die, it will still change. The likelihood of you coming up with an idea and surviving the first, this the saying of no plan ever survives the first contact with the enemy. It's pretty much the same. No business idea ever survives the first contact with the customer. So it's pretty much, yeah, the same here.
Building on your last point about startup is not an idea, it's a business. So what was your experience about attraction of investment? So I know that your campaign for Kickstarter was extremely successful, so maybe you will start first just why do you think it was so successful? You made one of the 3 top technological campaigns on the Kickstarter, as I understand, but also if you can share your general experience of how you actually find the money.
I think all of us did at some point in our businesses. So actually before we went on Kickstarter, we already raised about $800,000, because for anyone to be able to do anything, you need money. You can obviously hire people by giving them a low percentage in your business, also works and also happened with us. But at the end of the day, to do something significant, especially with hardware, and I think all of us are doing hardware here of some kind, requires capital. With investors, it's a tricky business. I think the main thing we learned was it takes a long time, and you almost have to court investors. So it's like trying to court a girl. You do it over a period of time. You know, you start kind of in a nice way, and you really kind of have to escalate. You know, and that is the only way it will work. You know, you can't just call an investor and say, hey, I want a meeting. I mean, you can, but most very serious investors would be like, who are you? So you need to get an introduction. You know, it takes many months to build that connection. And also another important thing with investment, no one ever goes in and raises $1 million or even $500,000 or even $100,000. You know, you start small, you get your first investment of $5,000, then you get another $5,000, then you go to someone else and get $30,000, and then so on. So you always build it up. So that's something I've learned personally.
Okay, your experiences about it?
Yeah, so raising investment is definitely a full-time job, and I totally agree with Sergey. These girls, they keep dumping you, and keep dumping you, and keep dumping you. At some point, the money you need, then it gets back. So, you know, it's now you who dumps them. So it works exactly like that. At the point of startups, probably, but later on, with different investment stages, it's a completely different story. With startups, I think the invention of the notion of crowdfunding is simply fantastic. Whether it's crowdfunding for equity or crowdfunding for products like God's case, but it just raises the profile of your startup, and whether you are successful or not, you'll get noticed by other investors. So without crowdfunding, I don't know how many, especially hardware startups, will survive.
Just to comment on that idea of girlfriends dumping you, I think once you do get a girlfriend, suddenly all the other girls looking at you, I mean, knocking on the door, I could be a girlfriend, and that's really funny. I think that happens a lot when you raise investment, especially from a big VC. Suddenly other investors are interested. Just to comment on some points here, what else could be useful here? First of all, I think the money that you guys raised for Kickstarter is the best kind of money because you didn't give any equity, and that was customers' money. And that not only serves as money to build a product, but also validation for investors and for everyone else that the product needs, the market needs a product. That's that. If you can get ever crowdfunding, not even funding, if you can, because sorry man, what's that thing? Jesus. Kickstarter is not a crowdfunding as such. You're actually selling the product. There are other platforms for crowdfunding, like Syndicate Group, etc. These are different things. But anyway, so in UK especially, you can apply for different grants from. There's all government grants that provide you funding for developing a technical idea, and they actually fund the hardest bit, the riskiest bit, which is building a prototype, testing it, validating your technology. And I think UK is quite unique in that sense. There's a lot of them here, and and they're equity free, so you don't have to give away your business for that. And yeah, investment is really distracting. I hate that, and I think all of us hate it because we'd rather work on the product. So the quicker you can get it done, the happier it will be. So start in the beginning before you even need money. Start courting those girls and collecting those numbers. And yeah,
I think another important thing we learned is that you don't have to go on Kickstarter to create traction. So it's kind of less about money, but when you go to investors, you need to show something, you need to show value. And usually they say, well, you have no customers, you just have this crazy idea, like, why are you building a modular smartwatch? I mean, this is an age-old idea. First of all, it's impossible from a hardware perspective. It's an old idea for 30 years. And second of all, there's all these guys coming in like Apple, Samsung, you know, what are you going to do? And you're really trying to show traction there. So with us, we didn't get our first traction on Kickstarter. Our first ever idea was, okay, we have this idea of a smartwatch, let's just build it and show it to some people. So we took some RBW boards, it's like really big, funky, like electronics boards. We built this massive prototype, it was literally like this big. And we went to people and showed it, and people thought it was funny, but they thought it was something interesting. At that point, we were like, okay, that's not good enough. How can we show to investors that we have at least something, or at least like those people who can put in £5,000 or so on. So we had this idea of making a video, having no product, not really knowing when we're going to release it, how much it will cost. We said, okay, let's make a video, let's see what the world thinks about it. And then we had this debate whether you should release your idea because of all these IP issues and licensing and fees. You know what, we did this video, on the second day we had an article from TechCrunch about us, and then suddenly we had thousands of people knocking on our door saying, hey, wow, what are you doing? You know, obviously we didn't tell anybody we have nothing, we just said we have something. So you kind of have to fake it till you make it. That was the first thing that You know, we made the video, went on TechCrunch, went viral all over the world. We had this group of people. We were like, wow, 5,000 people, let's survey them. We surveyed these people, we got to know them, we built some survey profile of real people who wanted our product. We then went, we were invited to like pitch to the Duke of York and all these kind of cool things. Maybe some guys here did the same thing. And after a while, we were like, okay, so we've done the first bit. We got about 5,000 people. We met with one of our mentors. It was a Berkeley International School summer program in Nice, in France, of all places. And there was this guy who basically told us, well, you've gone this far. Why don't you go and test your product even further? And he said, why don't you arrange a call with one of these beggars? Because, you know, he says, well, out of the 5,000 people, there are probably 100 of them who are dying to have blogs. And ask them for money. And we were like, well, how much? He said, ask them for $100. Like, well, we don't even know when we're going to make it. He said, no, ask them to pay and see what happens. So we arranged a couple of calls. We spent half an hour talking to people, or an hour, you know, and they really loved the idea. And at the end of the call, I was very uncomfortable asking these people from all around the world, would you put $100 to have the right to be the first to get this product? And out of the 15 people who had a call with us 2 days, 13 agreed. They were like, okay, I'll give you $100. I'm like, okay, here's the account details. And then boom, people were giving us money. And we were like, wow, okay, that worked. Then we won a competition. So every time we did these critical things just before we had pitching to these big investors. We had this crazy idea how we can improve traction. And just to finish up, so we then further built on this idea. So we did this with 13 people. A few months down the line, we were about to pitch to the CEO of Intel, as I said, Louis Vuitton, Venus Williams, the tennis superstar, and we were like, how are we going to convince these people to give us money? Why don't we show them that we can do some more sales, you know? Again, we have no product yet. We don't even have a manufacturer at the time. So, yeah, we did the same thing, but we sent it to everyone. We said, hey, there's only 1,000 places. If each one of you puts $50, okay, not 100, we're going to give you the right to be first. And hey, again, 1,000 people in less than 2 days gave us $50,000. And it keeps going on.
It sounds you have to be brave and creative simultaneously in order to do this type of things. I would like to ask one last question before I allow the public to ask the questions. There is some kind of myth or legend that if you really want to be a successful startupper, you need to drop out of your education, because you know, like the founders of Google left their PhD programs, and Mark Zuckerberg escaped from and went to California from Harvard. So I want to ask about the importance of education for your personal projects, because I know that some of you engaged with PhD programs and you spend a lot of time on studying. So we are here at LSE. What the importance of studying, in particular PhD, because I know that some of you have these experiences for your projects.
That's spot on, because that's my pain, and I have an adamant opinion that you can't do things like PhD and a successful startup at the same time. I know what you're talking about, and this is why I still can't finish my PhD. I was near, but I couldn't, simply because the thing we were doing, it became more important. And another co-founder, Kirill, so he started his PhD a little bit earlier than myself, so he got right in time, so he just defended his thesis before everything started booming with Kino-mo, so I couldn't. So my opinion that you can combine it, and you can do two things at the same time, but you will never ever do two things as successfully as you can. That's, for me, it's 100%.
But was your PhD experience competition proposed related to the project?
It was just taking time. So
I mean, in your studying, is it something that you were able to transform to your project?
No, that was the problem. If you can at least use some knowledge from your, say, PhD in your startup, that's perfect. That's a combination of two things, and you can decide which thing to prioritize. But in our case, in the case of both co-founders, it had nothing to do at all. So it was a problem.
What's your experience?
Come on, Serge, I know you have an amazing story about your PhD. Every time he comes to visit us at Wire, he cries, oh my god, my PhD, I'm gonna die.
Same. My PhD is on hold. I'm still going to write a thesis. But, I will do it.
I've heard that for the last 6 years now, so.
Yeah. No, but yeah, you can't. You can do it in the beginning. think you could probably do it with your undergrad. The thing is, there's a big difference between PhD and undergraduate or master's course. Undergraduate is probably the best place because you have loads of time and you can get through exams. My co-founder didn't go to a single lecture in last 2 years of his studies, and he still managed to get it first. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, but you can get it to 1 or something. With undergraduate, you can do the exams. With PhD, you have to report to your supervisor every week or every 2 weeks or so on, and it becomes problematic. So you just have to be honest with them. But this is the best time to do things. You will never get time to work in a business when you're working. I mean, unless you're very persistent. I know a lot of my friends who were very startup oriented, and once they got the job, it's really difficult to come back. Because when you're in a startup, you kind of are like a student. You never have enough money. Maybe not for yourself, but for your business, and you always put all the money into your business. So that's that you don't do a fancy lifestyle. You just work all the time, and you do it for a reason.
I wasn't smart enough to get a PhD program, so I did it undergrad. But I think the importance of education in this whole story is not necessarily that the course you're doing or education as such, but the educational institution you're part of. Because you will run into your co-founders, probably you'll form interesting friendships that will last you a lifetime. And for too many startups I at least know of, the co-founders came together while being in university. So I think that's the biggest value, doing a good entrepreneurship probably course in a good university and a good school. That was probably the case with me as well.
Okay, so we have about half an hour to ask some questions. So if you have any questions, I can continue asking, but probably it's better to give you the space to ask the question. Any question?
Thanks, first of all. So my question would be, as an aspiring entrepreneur as well, did the UK migration policies ever give you an anxiety while working on your startup, and how would it be possible to stay in the UK as you build your business?
It's called entrepreneurship visa. Some universities issue it. I know in Imperial they have about space for 20 people every year. And guess what? There's not 20 people who apply. You have to show some traction. You have to show them a business plan, and I think there is a minimal number of investment that you need to have in some cases. So I think it's I don't know what sort of off the top of my head. It's £30,000 maybe or more. It really depends what you can prove.
I'm not an immigration lawyer. I was lucky because I was from the EU, so I didn't have a problem with that. However, 2 of our founding team, 3 of our founding team, they're on entrepreneurship visas, and that's correct. You have to raise $50,000 for every 2 visas you get. So we had to show $100,000 minimum investment for them to get the entrepreneurship visas to stay in the country. So also I know there's a program called from UKTI. It's a serious program. What they do, they scout for very talented entrepreneurs and technology guys from across the world. And if you have a university degree and you want to start a tech business in the UK, they'll give you not only a visa for 2 or 3 years, they'll also give you an allowance for the first year, I think, £1,000 or something like that, to survive for the first year of building that idea, and place you in an accelerator. So that's if you're interested, you can Google that.
Yes, you need to build a successful startup and then raise 100K as an investment, and then you get it.
Thanks for the presentation, guys. I actually have a specific question to do with one of your projects. So 2 of the products seem as if there's still a lot more work to be done in terms of engineering, the watch and the glass. But the hologram, it seems like it's finished. I was just wondering, what are the next steps in terms of its development? Is it just marketing and sales, or is there still are you going to improve it even more? What are you going to do with it?
Is the question for the hologram or for the hologram?
It's essentially for the hologram, yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate you see that this is a finished product, but it's not. Well, it's as we put it now, it's the product which is appropriate for trials in up to 10 locations, because the product we want to build is a large network of those devices interconnected between each other, when you'll be able to go to a computer, to a browser, and then see a network of all the devices, then select a particular device and push the content on it wirelessly with 1 click of a button. That's the product you'll see later in 6 months' time if you come here this week. And yeah, so this is. Yeah, so it's not a finished product, and in terms of engineering, there'll be many more developments as well. So the next step is just proceed with trials, sign agreements, and then go to mass production. And most importantly, this is not a consumer product like with the gas situation. It's not. So it's a B2B one. So it takes a little bit more in terms of certification, engineering, maybe not more, but in a different way.
One question there.
If you were offered an acquisition by a big company such as Google, Samsung, Apple, would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No. Well, up to a point, right? You know the story about Tesla. They were running out of money, and they tried to sell themselves to Google for like $5 billion or something. You know, you have to do whatever it takes to save your startup if you're in trouble, or if the offer is too good. But in most cases, if you have investment, serious investment will try and keep you on board until you can come out of the situation and sell for 10x. But it really depends. If these guys have a lot of alignment with the company, that's good. But if you want to build your own brand, no. So it's,
But I'd say at some point, all startups, they are heading to being bought out by somebody, by Google. That's the principle of startups' existence. However, the exception here would be if you really have a mission, like with the glasses, when you help blind people, perhaps your priorities, your incentives are slightly different. But my opinion is that non-startups, they exist, maybe 60–70% they exist just for the sake of being bought by somebody. Unfortunately, maybe, but this is the way.
Thank you, Artem, for helping us now. Now I have a true north sort of sense. I can go home and say, now our strategy is going to be. I think it depends very much on the entrepreneur. You can also go public, just to add to another option. In this case, you don't have to be acquired. You go public, and this is a liquidation event for both of your investors and founders. That's the way to make an exit. Also, I think, just to comment on the mission part, because maybe that's confusing. We started the company as a human augmentation company. So we are looking at ways how we can augment people's senses and abilities. So in the way our smart prosthetic legs can make people walk and run faster and jump higher, we believe that smart glasses and our software can augment humans' ability to perceive information and enhance your memory and ability to process information faster. Blind people, this is the first market because they're the most, they have the most pain and they're willing to wear smart glasses today when no one else is willing. But that's exactly what we're doing. If we can help a blind person to get a job and be as competitive as any other sighted person in the market, imagine what we can do for a sighted person. And this is a much grander vision than just helping blind people and doing a good thing just to go to heaven, maybe one day. So, but again, I would agree. It depends on every person's. What are you doing to start for? You want to make an exit, you want to make some money and move on to something else. There are serial entrepreneurs that just do businesses to the stage when they can flip it. And there are other entrepreneurs that they have their vision of the world and they want to change it in a certain way. And I also know that, there's many ways how you can get out of your sort of like startup into the big world. Liquidation, acquisition, you can become a company that just licensing their technology. You don't have to become big, but you're still lucrative, and there's no reason for you even to liquidate. You just keep growing. There's a lot of amazing companies that are based around talent. They're always hiring brilliant people, and they outsource their talent around the world. They're not big, but they're making good money. And so some startups don't even need to have a liquidation event. They can just make good living out of their revenues. So I think there's options.
I think just to add to this, yeah, some startups are just profitable, like GoPro. Take example of GoPro, they were profitable for a very long time. However, at some point in their life, they either need to build new technology, which requires huge amounts of capital, or they want to go into new markets. And this is the point where they just need money. And the easiest way for GoPro, for example, is to go IPO. rather than get investor money. You know, it's just a cheaper way to get the finance. So really, all of these acquisitions and so on is just ways of getting finance so you can grow.
So just building up on the last point by Stan. So what's your business really about? Is it about earning some money, or is it about business, or is it about changing the world? How you make the right balance between these two very different aspects? So would you like to change the world, or would you like to make money?
Is it really only two options here?
I mean, maybe there are some for you third option.
What would be the third option?
You tell me.
I don't know. I think there's more than just two options. I'm sure there's a lot of companies that made a big difference to the world while being profitable. I also don't believe you can make a lasting influence in the world without making profit and being profitable. I would argue that, what was a brilliant example somebody used the other day about Mother Teresa and Bill Gates. So Mother Teresa, she hugged 1,000 people, but Bill Gates wrote one check of $7 million and he eliminated malaria for the generations to come. Who is the saint is a good question now. So I think it's if you want to look to make a lasting impact, you must make sure that you're in some way sustainable and profitable. I don't think there must be a debate, and a lot of visionaries today, like Elon Musk, he couldn't do much more profitable things today than creating a space mission or electric car to save the environment in a solar city. But he does those things because they're very impactful while also making shitloads of money. And
So I would just probably think there's more ways than just two.
In your case, would you add something? Is it about my business, or is it about some vision that you have how to change the world with your business?
Well, for me, just the only comment to add is that it's nothing. It's never about money, and if it is about money for any startup, then the startup will not succeed for sure.
What factors need to come together in a country, or should be cultivated in a country, that would allow it to put sort of production of innovative technology on a stream-like flow to the tune of US or Israel? You know, is it the human capital? I don't know, an inclusive kind of policy in terms of immigration, good weather? What do you guys think?
there's a brilliant book actually. I was reading just about a similar topic here, The Brief History of Humankind. If you just Google that, you'll find probably the author, and he argues about how important is I don't know, there was one interesting point about how those companies where capital can go safely without investors being afraid it's going to be nationalized or disappear because of a country being corrupt. It was one of the most decisive factors why some of today's countries are much more successful at attracting capital and entrepreneurs as well. He used a lot of historic examples, such as Netherlands being nobody and suddenly becoming one of the superpowers, having colonies around the world. Or today's examples as well. We probably know some countries where capital is not as safe as in Britain, and it's much more risky to start startups there. And I know a lot of fellow entrepreneurs who speak maybe the language spoken in this room who go to this country because it's not very safe to make startups in that country. So I think that's probably the only thing I can think of, one of the working factors.
So I was saying that if you have the willingness, you can do a lot of good things. You've probably heard of Kirill from Smartwatch. He did a great job. After being in Silicon Valley, he went back and did a lot of really good things back home. So you can nurture startups, but you have to be very strong in countries where it's a bit harder to do so.
Any more questions?
So about the watch, what is the estimated cost? What is the estimated cost of the watch? Because now a lot of tech is not accessible to large segments of population.
Yeah, in our case it's expensive, and that's what we learned. Modularity is expensive. We thought it's 25% more expensive, but it is more. This is the way that Project Aura branded themselves, the modular smartphone, I don't know if you've probably heard. With us, just because with hardware, with making physical things, the cost depends on volume. So if we were to make 1 million, the cost would have been $70. But because we are making the first batch of 5,000 watches, or 8,000 watches, the cost is something around $170 for us. You know, and we're only selling it for $250, $300. So it scales as you're, as you're scaling your business.
Hello. First of all, I just want to say thank you for coming. I think my question directs to every panelist on the table. So obviously your product is very magnificent, but a very important aspect of a business is patents, right? Do you mind just going through briefly the story of your patents, or like any struggles you had or success stories you had with regards to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, we have a patent pending, and you have to protect it somehow, in particular with hardware. And but it's never probably about just the patent, because if your product is successful, other companies in other countries, they will find a way to copy you without infringing you, etc. So you would need to build an infrastructure, an ecosystem around your company, the brand, everything else. So you won't be afraid of somebody copying you or your patent being too weak and not being granted. So I'd say that every single startup needs to live in the world where it can expect that it will be copied every day. And this is the only right position, to my understanding.
My take on it is patents are worthless, but they're useful. So why is that the case? If you don't apply for a patent, someone else will do it for you and then sue you. There's a lot of companies out there doing that. If you apply for a patent and then a big company sues you, then, well, you can't really do anything about it anyway. However, patents are useful for investors. They see it as property. The more patents, the better. Like, we filed our first one last year, and then we filed 6 more. You go through a number of iterations. So usually, the easiest way is to file a provisional patent in the US somewhere, which gives you protection around the world later on. In our case, I mentioned the video that we released, particularly. So because we released the video in the UK, we're not able to file that patent in the UK. Because the law in the UK says once it's disclosed, that you can't. Which we had to take the risk. But in other places in the world, we had a granting period of about 3 to 6 months when we filed. So we took that risk, and so far it's okay.
I don't really believe in this one-size-fits-all approach when giving advice, so I try not to give advice how to go about things about your business, because I haven't heard what you guys are about to do. I can only talk from our experience. We made a decision to not build our own hardware. We built for existing hardware. So in a very similar way as in applications for smartphones, our software works on any smart glasses today available on the market. Which is kind of hard to patent, because software is much harder to patent software, and also it's easier to copy software even if you do have a patent. So we didn't really go the patent route, and it worked for us, I think, so far. And also, you guys know probably that Elon Musk also, I don't know, I'll keep mentioning him, but they open sourced all of their technology and most of their patents, what relates to SpaceX and Tesla. They're publicly available. This guy doesn't see any use for patents. Again, maybe because it's his vision, etc. Also, I really like the quote from Eric Ries. You probably read the Lean Startup Model, and he also a big believer in, like, your biggest competitive advantage is not necessarily your IP and your patents, but your ability to learn faster from your consumers than your competition. If you can learn faster and iterate a product, you'll probably always win. And this is why he's not also a big fan of patents. So, but I probably am closer to Serge's side on the patents here.
Yeah, you can always go open source and apply for a GNU license or get one, and then no one can patent that. But then you have to disclose everything in that.
I think we have time for a couple of last questions. So, is there any questions in the audience? I don't see any questions, so I will ask a couple of the last questions in that case. So my first question, actually, I assume that we can have here some people who are interested in doing their startups. What would you recommend them how to start? What is the first step?
I already shared, I don't believe there's like one-size-fits-all advice here. It very much depends on your business idea and the people you have in the team.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just go and do it, find your friends, make them do it. Some of them will join you and think it's cool, and then you see them drop out because they can't spare enough time for it. And many of my good friends who joined blocks for a while, you know, and helped around. Then I saw them kicking them out, and I was like, okay, guys, you know, the minute you get some money, everyone starts, you know, taking it more seriously. But yeah, just go and do it. Spend a lot of time. Spend your Friday nights, spend your Saturday nights, spend your Sunday mornings doing a startup. Get to some point, and then only that way you will be able to get somewhere. So I started about 5 or 6 different businesses before, and every time the projects failed because A, the team wasn't really believing in this big idea, and they just didn't really spend enough time on it, and B, because we were not spending enough time on it, we were going out and so on. But, yeah, you have to make sacrifices if you're on a startup.
So, and my last question would be, where do you see yourself, I know it's kind of a stupid question, but where do you see yourself in like 5 years? As a business and as an individual, do you think you're like going to be the next Google or like a big project that will try to kind of expand, or you think that you will move to other projects? How you see personally how your future should look like?
I think it's a great question, particularly because every investor asks me about it, so you have to have an answer. So, yeah, in 5 years' time, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's not going to be an investor's answer, as I see it. So, in 5 years' time, it's all about doing something valuable. Well, we keep hearing in our case that technology opens applications, many different applications, and we don't even know what we don't know at the moment. So it might be something completely different, some other things that we're not even imagining right now. But again, the biggest criteria is just doing something valuable.
Personally, I'll be doing startups no matter what. Just decided to do it. It's fun. It gives you a big buzz. There's this guy called Michael Baum. You know, he did like 10 different startups in his life, and so he exited his last one with a valuation of $3.5 billion, or something crazy. And we got into the program together with these guys when they're giving away like $10,000 and so on to a lot of crazy people doing crazy startups from around the world. And he has a very good LinkedIn profile. His intro is, you know, startups are hard, startups are painstakingly hard. But you know, if you really believe in them, then you go and do it. So I'll be doing that. Blocks. We're believing in an ecosystem that we can build. We can build and go into different niches. We can build the app store, but for hardware, and really improve people's lives or improve services, not only for consumers but for healthcare, for industrial use cases, for factories, for businesses, and so on. So there's many things we can do.
Yeah, that's I think our vision would be very close to the Marvel character of the Iron Man. So using technology to really augment the powers of human beings to be more efficient or more creative or able in many ways. So that's kind of, if you imagine that picture, that's probably towards where we're going. But I would agree with Artem. Nobody knows, and like we could we only make plans for maybe a year ahead. So we envisage at least 1,000 blind people walking the streets of London with our glasses this time next year, or probably towards December this year. This is about as much as we could have in terms of the fixed planning here.
So I would like really to thank you for sharing your experience. I think it's really amazing, 3 case studies and amazing cases of success, but we'll still expect to learn more about what's going on to happen with your projects. I think it's a great potential, and thank you very much for coming here and sharing. Some presents.